So this here is the finished product. This one here is actually the one that I was racing in the Commonwealth Games. This is a completed build. As you can see, this one here is outfitted with the 2217 2300 kV Cobra motor. And you can see how on the motor mount on this one, it was slightly different. I actually cut it back a short distance. Very, very simple to do, but sparring it up and shaping it is the exact same process. So it's just as easy as just chopping your motor mount down slightly. So don't at all stress out about that if you've got the larger motor and you have to do that. It's very, very easy process to just trim out that small section. Just trim it out at the same width as the diameter of your motor mount block. Trim it back about an inch for the 2217 and you are set. So anyways, this is how I laid out my electronics on it. This seems to be working out pretty well for trying to hit CG. I still had to add about, I think it's about a ½ an ounce of weight in the nose, so you still will probably need to add a little bit of nose weight to it, but that's not too big of a deal. But anyways, like I said, I'm running the 2217 2300 Cobra 50 amp ESC. I actually buried my ESC in the motor mount itself and then routed my power wires and everything actually through the center of the plane. But you can always mount your ESC off to the side of the mount over here and just run your wires straight down the side of the mount. You can also mount your ESC over here and just run your motor wires down the side of the mount as well. So there's a couple different options for it. Servos, probably going to operate best leaving them towards the end of the plane, because you want to try and have your servo wires away from your receiver antennas as well as the signal wires on your ESC. You really don't want to run your ESC wires over top of your servo wires. You're going to get some jitters in there and possibly some lag. So there's just some things to kind of watch out for. Keep your signal wires as separated as you can. Yeah, that's my setup. If you want to kind of pause the video and get a look at what's on it and where I placed everything, you can base your plane off of this as well if you like. And don't be afraid too, if you're worried about separation, you have plenty of space on the bottom side of the plane. You can always mount your ESC down there, either on the motor mount section or off to the side, and just route the motor wires down the side of your motor mount. And of course this one's VTX is up top. I actually buried my antenna in my wing, so I don't have any drag from that. And I'm using one of the new RunCam 3 minis, and I just buried that to where it's pretty much buried down into the plane. I always like to have an easy option to replace my camera if I end up cooking something, because I'm really good at breaking cameras for whatever reason. So yeah, that's pretty much the finished setup and ready to go fly. Alright, so just a couple other fine points of this plane here. I just wanted to show the battery bay is hollowed out to take the thicker batteries. This here is one of the Turnigy's, still 2200, but this is considerably thicker than the jet fuel battery here. You can kind of see them side by side. The Turnigy is definitely thicker. But this one, if you hook it in here, and put it in the battery bay, you can still see, of course the wires will be out on the one side, but you can still see that there is going to be just a slight bit of gap on the back side of that battery. Let me see if I can just get this in here all the way so you all get a better idea of this. And what I did on this too is you want to cut out a channel around the perimeter of your battery bay to route your wires. That way you don't have to have any wires external. And that also just keeps everything clean, but it also enables your battery to act as your battery hatch as well. And so you can see we still got a little bit of a step down from the back of the battery to the airframe itself, but it's not that big of a gap. But what you'll notice on the shorter battery here is you stick this one in place, and this one here, the end of the battery, actually ends up slightly under that back lip there. If anything, it would be best to have this right at it or ever so slightly above it. So what you do is you have that thin piece of EPP that comes on top of that battery plug and you receive your plane. If you need to, you can glue that in the bottom of your battery bay to raise your battery up slightly. So don't be afraid to use that if you need to. Depending on what brand batteries you're running, they may be even thinner than the jet fuel, in that which case you might need to use the little sheet that comes on top of that battery plug. And then as far as CG on it, I'm measuring it, and I'll measure it again here so you all can see. From the trailing edge of the center pod of the plane, you're measuring right at 4 inches on the dot. And from the leading edge of the plane, you're measuring right at 6 1/4 inches. So you can check it from either direction. I would definitely recommend starting out just a hair in front of this, just starting out on it, just so you know you've got that little bit of extra nose weight to help you be stable on your first couple flights. And this CG that I have here is right on the edge. I basically started out with it flying great, and I removed weight until I got it to where it was squirrely, and then I added just a little bit of weight back in. So this is right on the edge. So this is basically the do not exceed point. Don't move your CG any more than 4 inches back from the trailing edge. You can experiment with it, but it's probably going to start to get squirrely on you. So you definitely want to leave it at 4 inches from the trailing edge or slightly further to be in the safe zone. But again, if you're trying to get every bit of performance out of this plane, you can always sit there and tweak with it and find your CG on the dot to where you can pull as hard as you want and it's not going to tip stall and it's right on the verge of being squirrely, and that will get you optimal performance with this plane. And with that, I think that is probably all of the main points that I have to talk about with this plane. If you all think of any other information that may be missing or is unclear, feel free to contact me on Facebook at TyFighterFPV Builds, and I would be happy to clear up anything that may be unclear to you. You can also shoot me an email at tyler.brit94@gmail.com, and Brit is spelled with 2 T's, and I can possibly assist you there. But anyways, I hope this video is helpful to you, and I hope to see you all out there flying some Auroras, and I look forward to possibly competing against some of you at some point. Anyways, have a wonderful evening, and enjoy your build.